We'd like to move along with a little bit of formality, not too much, but I think first of all, I think we ought to put our hands together for Kevin and Pauline and all that their helpers for the wonderful function that they put on tonight. I'd like to take this opportunity to also thank those people for coming that have travelled, well, all of you for coming, of course, but particularly those people that have travelled long distances. And you all know who you are, but I must in particular mention Mum's brother Colin, who's come down from Launceston, and Mum's cousin Ali, who's come across from Robertson in New South Wales. And so put your hands together. Sorry, but I'm getting old myself and I'll have to put the glasses on. You can't read my own writing. Oh, come on. Yes, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you all for coming to our mother Connie Shaw's 80th birthday party. She's done a lot for us during her long and fruitful life. I speak for everyone present and also for those who were unable to make it today, particularly Tim, who lives in Sydney, and my twin brother Peter, who lives in Canada, and his family, Laurie, Murray, Daniel, Andrew, Lisa, Julie and Kathleen. They all send their love on this joyful occasion, and let us not forget Vince, our father, and Connie's loving partner for 45 years. In trying to put into words our deep feelings of love and admiration for our mother, I am reminded of the words of that song from the film Love Story. Where do I begin to tell a story of how great a love can be, a true love story that is older than the sea, and so on. The truth is that any words become inadequate, but let me try. Connie and Vince Shaw instilled in their family a love for Catholic faith, and this in many ways served as a shining light for us and helped us develop qualities which our parents tried to foster. The girls were in the Legion of Mary and the boys were all the service at St Mary's Cathedral. These were strong influences. There were other strong influences all around us, even at the bottom of the street, the Rosary House Sisters and Calvary Hospital over the hill. During our childhood, I recall that the evening rosary was recited every evening. Mum would ring her little bell and the family would gather. There were times when I wished we had never heard of Father Peyton, who was a great campaigner for the Rosary in the 1950s. I mention these things because it helps illustrate what Connie Shaw stands for: a love of God and of other people. She was the disciplinarian, and justice was swift, but always fair. I recall one incident when I kicked my brother Michael, 11 years old at the time we were, Michael. I kicked him where I shouldn't have. Retribution was very swift, but the penalty, whilst it may have hurt, was very fair. And I should apologise now to you, Michael. 50 years later. And I say that because the apology at the time that my mother forced wasn't very sincere. And if Peter was here, I'd also apologise to him, because he was the one that copped Mum's punishment for what I'd done. There are many qualities, but I'm at a loss. But let's just pick a few. Mum has patience and understanding, and this is apparent to all of us now. Although I must admit that it wasn't very apparent when we were a lot younger. I recall an incident in the early 1950s when Mum and Dad loaded most of us into a car and we headed for Launceston for the 40th or 50th anniversary, I'm not sure which, of the old boys' dinner of St Patrick's College. Dad was an old boy, and this was a great opportunity for him to catch up with a few of his old mates. Us children were evenly distributed amongst the relatives in Launceston, but there was to take place a redistribution at about 10 p.m. that night when Dad was due home from the dinner. Dad was pretty good at logistics, and I am sure that as he headed for the old boys' dinner, he knew exactly what he had to do after the dinner. But come about 10 p.m, those logistics must have become a bit of a blur as he waxed lyrical with his old St Pat's cobbers about their school days. I recall this incident because Peter and I were at 26 Wellman Street, our grandmother's place, and we were lying awake in the dark, listening to Launceston's famous old post office clock go through its chimes every quarter of an hour. Come 11 o'clock, and there was still no sign of Dad when Mum came through the door, having walked several kilometres from one of our uncle's. It was at that point that Peter and I, we knew something was wrong. Mum got into bed with us as old Nin, our grandmother, hovered around waiting for her son. The post office clock went through its paces until well past 1 o'clock in the morning. Patience and understanding is fine, but even Mum had to draw the line somewhere. Now they say twins have a special relationship. They can sometimes have the same thoughts. Well, let me say this on this occasion of the night of the St Pat's Old Boys dinner in 1955, it was no exception. Because as we heard a car pull up at about 1:30 and the front door open, we both had the same sense that something quite memorable was about to Mum met him in the hallway, and not even his excuse that Archbishop Guildford Young was the guest speaker. Not even that excuse was enough to save him. But really, I tell you the story because it really did illustrate my mother's concern for her children. The next day was always forgiven and forgotten, almost, I think. Connie Shaw, on behalf of your family and friends, I wish you a very happy birthday, and God willing, we hope we are all still here for your 90th. And I'd like you to be upstanding and fill your glasses, and let's greet the toast, Connie Shaw. Come on. Connie Shaw. Oh, she's a jolly little fellow, oh, she's a jolly little fellow, oh, she's a jolly little fellow, and so say all of us, and so say all of us, and so say all of us, oh, she's a jolly little fellow, oh, she's a jolly little fellow, oh, she's a jolly little fellow, and so say all of us. Hooray! 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 Now we'll now have the cutting of the cake. We're just happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Bonnies. Happy birthday to you. Hip hip.
Hooray!
Hip
Hooray!
hip.
Hooray!
You don't even look a day over 80.